Hmm.
And without that, you're just floundering. It's like you're just playing an open world RPG doing side quests without documentation. So like, well, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's your old back and shoulders from all the snow shoveling you've been doing?
It's so for the people that are listening that are not in Toronto, we got I think it was the highest record of snow
That was like 60 centimeters.
ever. Yeah, 40 to 60 centimeters of snow in one day. The pictures are crazy. Like it's, I don't know. It's nuts. I
Yeah.
shoveled 3 times yesterday and then once this morning, and it was the same amount of snow every single time. It was like I hadn't touched anything. And the back from like my backyard to the parking. So my car, we don't have a garage; it's just parked outside. I hadn't touched that at all for the entire day yesterday. So no shovel had touched that snow this morning. So when I opened the gate, you could see the exact measure of how much snow fell within
Oh man.
a day. Yeah, that's totally nuts. I had to shovel like at least 2 or 3 feet of snow off my car.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's my back gate.
Can't really. Oh, yeah, I can kind of see that.
So I have
Nice.
to shovel from there to the car and then the car stuff.
You know, if you just committed to living in a high rise, all of these
Yeah,
problems would disappear. You know, you'd have
yeah.
like
That's my
underground
next
parking.
move. It's true.
High rise life is where it's at.
It's true. You don't have to think about any of that stuff. It's so nice.
Nope. All
All
right.
right.
So,
So
what are we talking about today?
um, process related, risk management, stuff like that. So just kind of reviewing a little bit, I guess, of our process philosophy. The reality is that most projects don't fail because of the quality of the work or the sort of like ideation. I think a lot of projects just fail because of um, all the sort of logistical surroundings of undertaking a project like the projects that we do. Um, and we actually haven't had any projects that have failed, but I just know from, and I'm sure we know the same industry, and we've seen some projects fail before from companies that had to undertake some complex work. And so I think
Yeah.
you and I both have a pretty interesting perspective on what is the sort of metric for success for dev and design UX agencies. And I think from my perspective, it's really all about process.
Yeah, totally. Like having a
And
good
then all the
process is
supporting
one
parts.
thing,
Yeah.
but um, like why do you have a process and understanding how that's been cultivated? Because we've been building our process for like the last 10 years before we were even
Mhm.
10s. We knew it. We knew the importance of process and governance.
Yeah.
And every year we're always reviewing it, making minor changes to it. Every year there's something new that happens. So we're like, okay, well, maybe let's tweak this year. How can we improve this operationally? So I think you can have a process, but you always need to be maintaining that process. And
Yeah.
so what's our
And
working
it's
title?
um, I mean, I think we don't have one yet. Let's just say we don't have one yet because
We don't have
there
one
is
yet.
one. No, working tired. Good process isn't about control. It's about success.
Success. Okay. I liked what you had in our show notes
By the
though.
time, yeah,
Surviving reality. Because it's true. It's so true. Like, I don't know. The reality of things, it's way more complicated. Like no
yeah,
project goes 100%. Like it never hits those beats 100%. Even the
yeah.
successful projects, the smooth projects, there's always this little level of deviance. And the reality could be anything. It's
Deviance.
so and so went on
Love
vacation. um,
it. Sorry,
so
deviance
and
was
so went
just a
on
great word.
vacation. Yeah. Um,
Sorry,
Well,
someone on vacation. Yeah, someone moves
someone,
role. That's happened a bunch of times. Like,
yeah, someone moves a role,
yeah.
someone's sick, or IT was invited to the table too late, so now they actually have new parameters. Someone
Mhm.
was working on a side project that actually relates to this project, but no one drew the connections. So I don't know. I think the surviving reality part is great because businesses are like muddy and mushy and there's gray areas. They're not these smooth operating machines that we think and try to maintain. No matter how much governance and systems and processes you have, there's going to be that messy middle. So
Mhm.
that's the reality. And that's why I really like the original working title.
Okay, we'll keep it.
So I don't think it's
Um,
viral, but it's solid.
yeah, let's do a quick
um,
intro. So I'm Marcello, co-founder of Tennis. And this is Simon,
yeah.
also co-founder of Tennis. We're a B2B website and product design company. Yeah, so I mean, that's the sort of summary of what we're going to talk about, but we want to get a bit deeper into how client work at a systems level works, things like decision ownership, production process, why most breakdowns are not production related, and what is governance basically. Um, yeah. So Simon, my question to you, prompt for you:
Let's hear it.
when things break down, um, how do decisions usually like? How do what's sort of like a good process for taking into consideration? I was going to ask you something else, but I've sort of changed the question a bit. What,
Okay.
how do you take into account like these variabilities, these variables that you just mentioned? Like people, I mean, all of them have a little bit of their own nuance and response that needs to happen. But you're right, like a process needs to be flexible, and there are companies out there that offer templated products and services, but I feel like clients never get what they want in that system because you can't have something as rigid and non-flexible, at least in the type of work that we're doing at the scale that we're doing it.
No, you can't. And like if you have a rigid process, then it's gonna break. And
Yeah.
we've seen that before with other vendors that we've collaborated with. Their process is so rigid that any little bit of change throws them into a death spiral, and then they don't know what to do, and you turn around and they're trying to nickel and dime a client out of the scenario,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah. And I
that's
was going to
not the
say too, like,
definition of a flexible
yeah,
process. That's a rigid
it's,
process that's completely breaking down at any moment of ambiguity.
yeah. And I was just going to say, like, sometimes these processes are rigid for the wrong reasons, right? Like it's, it's, if you're being, like, you have to obviously take into account cost and labor and things like that. But if that's the primary decision for being as rigid as we've seen some processes, then it's not going to work really. Like someone's going to end up being unhappy in that scenario.
And it's usually the client.
Yeah, and you can
Like,
usually handle. I mean, we talk about process and governance. You can usually handle a lot of that stuff in the upfront conversations around governance, but process is more about the actual work.
yeah. So I guess, yeah, what was your question again?
Just how do you create a process that's flexible enough to help move things forward when there's, you
uh,
know, wild variability.
I mean, okay, so I'm sure we'll get to some of this later. It's a bit more granular down. I think it always comes down to like designing your process as a bit of a funnel, like incrementally, knowing that the start of any project is the riskiest part of a project, right?
Hmm.
And the end of a project shouldn't carry the same amount of risk because by the end, you should have more or less figured out all of the gaps and nuances and design and technology. But at the start of every project, that's where the ambiguity is highest and therefore the risk is also the highest. So if you think about
Mhm.
a really well designed process, it's something that's going to funnel you down and constantly like cut away that ambiguity at each incremental step and then find alignment at each step as well. And anytime that there is no alignment, it's as simple as having, a conversation. We have things like this baked into our project management, but that conversation usually goes, well, you know, what is in scope? How could we adjust this to make it in scope? Could we backlog it for a future phase? Right? Or is this so essential that we do need to include it? And how could we do that creatively? Like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
It means that every
Mhm.
conversation about scope creep or deviation it's a conversation that's within the framework of the process, and then all of that is documented. And then you move on to the
Mhm.
next thing and you keep niching further and further down until there's no ambiguity left and you have a robust backlog of all the things you left behind that were nice to haves or unknowns or future scope.
Mhm.
So I mean, yeah, at a high level, like a good process is a funnel, and then at a higher level, a great process is both a funnel and a cycle. Every project when it ends, you should really come back to the beginning. It
Mhm.
it's aligned with our whole idea that a website or a product, it's an ongoing thing, especially websites. They are products. It should be cyclical. You finish it, move on to the backlog,
Mhm.
cycle through, keep it ongoing, right?
Yeah. Um, yes. Good point.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think that makes sense. And then, like, what's your sort of like view on governance versus process?
I mean,
They're
I think,
related but different. They
yeah,
work
like
hand in hand.
you need someone to orchestrate the process. And so, like,
Mhm.
governance is always like who's responsible, who's accountable, who's doing the work, who's been consulted, who's informed about the work, right? The classic RACI stuff, the RACI chart.
Yeah.
Um, but for us, like, we make sure we define team leads on the client side and our side up front. So that way we always know who the key decision maker is. And at that point, we don't really care too much about how decisions are made on the client side, just that decisions are getting made. And there's one person, one point person that's going to run with it and either make the decision or communicate the decisions.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
governance is just part of the process. It's part of the orchestration of the process.
Yeah.
Um, and it exists because you need someone to do those check ins, to guide the process, to answer those questions, and then to be accountable. I think that accountability is where governance really comes in.
Yeah. And I think it also just like helps to promote decision clarity. So whether that's um, client decisions when it comes to the actual process and the work, or whether it's decisions around how things are going to be done under certain circumstances. And you can like over time, you recognize a lot of variables that are potentially huge problems. And when we started, we missed a bunch. Things would come up. It would derail projects. We would have to kind of get projects back on track. And then I think just over time, you start to realize like, oh, if a client moves position in the middle of this project, what do we do? Right. And like clients aren't thinking about that, but we kind of need to think about that. And I think over, like 10 years or more, you kind of get a handle of all the big complex variables. And so governance really works as a tool to start setting rules around that, whether they happen or not. So, you have the conversations with clients and you set the internal rules and the project management rules for what are the next steps if an employee on your end, if the decision maker leaves and you hire someone new to take on the role and they're stepping into this project 75% of the way, like that's going to
Mhm.
be an issue for sure. So what are the like governance rules that we're abiding by as a team to agree on what happens next. And that's just one example, but obviously like governance needs to be all encompassing. Kind of, I think over time you start to build more of a rule book in terms of like how you actually operate, and how you explain things to a client too. Like, they have no idea. Some clients may not know anything about change requests versus change orders, things like that. So setting those rules in place so that when the moment of friction comes up, you actually have the governance in place that you both all agreed on, so you can move faster through these decisions, I think is key.
Yeah, that's true. Rather than like just locking up and freezing, right, in the face of
Yeah.
that issue.
Yeah. It's kind of like an agreement, like we agreed to work in this way together. Uh, as a vendor or as an agency, like our experience in success has been because we like to work in this way or on these metrics. Do you agree or do you not agree? Is there anything you want to
Mhm.
negotiate, basically?
And we do that at like every stage of the process too. Like we do a kickoff where we talk about governance and how that stage of the project is going to work, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And even in that, we say, like, hey, life happens. If you're going to be late with this, if we're going to be late with this, both of us can kind of expect that there's going to be some communication and then some course of action that needs to be taken to make sure the whole project isn't derailed because things happen,
Hmm.
life happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've been halfway through a project and then someone's like, surprise, I'm going on maternity leave. It's like, they don't even have someone filled in yet. And it's like, how do you ensure continuity in a scenario like that? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's governance and the flexibility.
Yeah. So governance and process are kind of high level, and then there's tools within that, and one of them I would say is documentation. So kind of what is your sort of philosophy around why documentation is such an important tool in the process?
You're going to hate me for this, but
Well,
it gets really
you're gonna say it's
philosophical.
not. Your first thing is like
No.
it's not. Okay, next question.
Uh, no. It's documentation is so critical, and we're like, us, we are like so intense about documenting everything, probably to a fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have,
No, no. I actually don't believe there is too much documentation
yeah, tell that
that can be
to
done.
the network attached storage at my home and my 2 terabyte Dropbox from materials and documents that are like decades in the making from work we've
Right.
done
Yeah,
together.
good.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
that's
true.
the fault is like, how do you manage this? Like, it's become big
Hmm.
data for us. We have about 8 terabytes of data, documents, documentation in like different formats. Like, I'm just praying for the day that AI can take that and make sense of it for me. But so, yeah, I mean, documentation is critical, but so the philosophy. So it is philosophical. But like when we first started talking about process and documentation, there's this thing that an old prof told me in university, this like old Greek myth about Ariadne's thread. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay.
It rings a bell, but I can't remember it. We might have spoken about this before. I'm sure we probably did.
Yeah. I pulled up the brief description, but basically Ariadne's thread, it's a Greek mythological symbol for solving complex problems through methodical, step-by-step approaches. It originates from the myth of Ariadne aiding Theseus by providing a ball of thread to navigate a minotaur's labyrinth. It
Oh
represents a
yeah,
guiding
yeah.
mechanism, logical trail, or solution to a seemingly impossible puzzle. So, like, not to get all like Greek mythology on this, but whenever I think of documentation, it's this idea of like having an unbroken thread, this like
Hmm.
ball of yarn that you can carry around with you. Because whenever there's a decision that was made, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So everything in our process, from the versions in Figma to the versions in Notion and Google Docs, like every one of those is part of the thread. And you can always trace your steps back to who made a comment about X, what was the decision on that, and what was the outcome from it.
Hmm.
And without that, you're just floundering. It's like you're just playing an open world RPG doing side quests without documentation. So like that's why I think
Well,
documentation is important, because you have to have continuity from end to end
yeah,
to get a full picture of everything. Because when a new person joins or someone goes on maternity leave and you have to introduce someone to the project or the program, what do you have? You need
yeah,
documentation. You have to walk them through that. It's all about
yeah.
traceability.
Yeah, or at minimum, just like validating decisions that you made collectively that people tend to forget sometimes,
Yeah.
conveniently or not, or non-conveniently.
I never think it's
Genuinely
like,
or convenient. I'm joking.
yeah. I mean, I always think it's
Although
genuine. I think,
I'm sure that happens sometimes.
no, yeah, yes, no, it does happen. Um,
Um,
but I think a good quote for that is like, if it's not written down, it's not real. That's it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Doesn't exist if it was never written down.
hmm
And in this day and age, when you've got everything recording, everything you're doing and transcribing and notes and like
yeah,
versions, there's really no excuse to not having a robust process for documentation.
yeah.
So,
What about when strategy genuinely shifts about a project?
say that again. You just you cut out.
Strategy shifting. So, 30% in, and then the entire strategy shifts.
Yeah, I mean, when the strategy shifts, it is common. It's all about a question of like, how big is that
Yeah,
shift? Is it
yeah, totally.
monumental? So at that point, if there is a change, that's when we pause, meet with the client, start asking questions like, well, what's the origin of this? Is it a reputational thing? Is it a top down thing? Like, why is this change happening now? Why wasn't anyone informed about this earlier on? So once we
hmm
have the context about it, that usually tells us the level of urgency and the amount of weight we have to put on that change. At the 30% mark, there's still plenty of room to flexibly move a project around. Maybe you're doing some horse trading, you're backlogging some features to surface these new features. Um, Maybe you're backlogging whole pages because that content and that strategy would just not be ready by the time something's ready to launch. So I think the earlier you catch things, the better. And that comes back to my whole point about funnels. It's always about funneling the ambiguity down to certainty. So if it happens mid funnel, there's still plenty of latitude to make changes and adapt. But if it happens at
hmm
the end, like here's a good example of like a complete non-starter. You get to the end and for whatever reason, someone is like, well, we don't like the creative direction. It's like, well, we talked about the creative direction like 4 cycles up the funnel in the process. Like, how is this? We have approvals here. How is this coming up now after the thing has been built? Right.
hmm
So the further down you get, the less latitude you have for making big changes like that. But I've never seen that happen. Like,
Yeah,
and that's just because of the way our process works.
yeah,
It keeps people
yeah.
really
I think this one
informed and accountable.
falls under a general bucket of what I would call like new information, which
Yeah.
the reality is like, the type of work that we do and a lot of other organizations, you're estimating and scoping something based on the knowledge that you have, and you can't really go as deep as you would in an ideal world without getting paid to do it. So, you're entering every project with a certain degree of unknown. Um, you have to kind of uh, manage at all stages.
Yeah, it's true. And if you can't fit it
Like
in, then
strategy change could be
it's
also just like new scope, right? Like that's very
true.
easy. That's another easy one that could be put under that new information bucket.
Yeah, future phase, a change request. How urgent is it to finish during this phase versus the next phase? And those
Hmm.
conversations are always great. It gives people an exit as well. And sometimes those decisions aren't even coming from the key decision maker on the project. They're coming from somewhere else in the organization. So our process works in an interesting way where it actually gives them ammunition to go back to their team and say, well, we can't do this, but we can put it in the backlog.
Hmm.
It's that way that working with a designer, our own process, like through osmosis, like ends up within another organization in a way, helps keep things on track on their side too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there anything else you want to touch on? I
I mean that's pretty
feel
good.
like that was kind
Systems
of
and
like a good summary of everything. Um, yeah. Um, I mean, I was thinking more along like we touched on it a little bit already, but basically, like, the hypothesis, your scope is really at the sort of estimating phase is really a hypothesis, not a contract. The contract is there to guide and put boundaries around the process and how you engage on a product. But and then we have other tools like the product requirements document, which is basically another tool to just like keep the project on track and get to an understanding of what it is that we're actually designing and building really, really early on in the process so that we can kind of rein in some of that variability. So like you said, I think you said funnel, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, the whole thing is basically iterating further down a funnel to get more and more concrete in terms of what we're designing and building. But the top of the funnel is not, I would say is not the beginning of production. The top of the funnel is the beginning of scoping. So like before something is even estimated, the initial discussions. And some companies, depending on how complex it is, like they don't really have an idea of what they want to design or build. So, you have to kind of change the process a little bit in order to try to narrow that funnel down even earlier. So it's maybe like a double funnel, like those instances where it's too complex to actually engage a full project. And so we would do a product requirements document as like a paid consulting gig just to help narrow in the client's thinking. So
Mhm.
that's like a small funnel, and then it opens back up into a larger funnel once the project actually gets going.
Yeah, yeah. And like we've also started doing proof of concept work um,
Yeah.
along with the
Which,
PRD,
yeah.
which is great because then people get to actually see stuff working.
Yes. Yeah. That's ideal for sure
Yeah. Like that one
in
carries a
certain
little bit more
projects.
risk and budget, but
Yeah.
ideally you can do a PRD plus a proof of concept. And then that's usually everything you need to start making bigger decisions about what it is you're
Mm.
building. But I like this idea that scope as hypothesis, not a contract, because that
Yeah.
is oftentimes our reality. Like the sales cycle ends and we have a scope of work, but the scope of work is largely just activities in the process
Hmm.
that are
Yeah.
going to
Totally.
clarify what the scope is. And because we're neurotic about staying on budget, we're always revisiting that scope and making
Mhm.
sure that it's going to be on target for timeline and budget. And that's just a consequence of having a good process, right?
Yeah. All right. Let's finish it off. What's
All
the
right.
hardest truth clients need to hear about process?
Oh God. I
I've got one.
mean,
I've got one. I've got one.
I have one. Okay. We'll see who's. We could always keep both or make a
Mine
cut,
is
but
mine is
you go
just
first.
follow it. Mine is just follow it. Like
All right.
there's a reason why it's there, and there's a reason why um, things operate the way they do, and just lean in.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
go ahead.
that's a good one. Mine's a bit weird. It's almost for like an agency versus a client or for both, but it's almost like everyone tries to sell on the fact that they have a process, but like you don't actually know the process until you've experienced it, until you've gone through it.
Mhm.
And we stopped trying to sell hard on process. We thought that was like a huge differentiator. And we've been through some other people's processes and we're like, wow, like this is awful. This is a terrible experience. um,
Yeah.
and it
Just
just
like vendor
reaffirms like ours
services,
is,
non-related. Yeah.
yeah. And it's just like reaffirms like ours is pretty good. Like I'm not trying to stroke our own egos here, but like I think our process is so good because of how flexible it is and how many different parts of a business that it tries to bring into the fold. Like you have the different audience, the humans, the objectives, the organization, the landscape. We try to have that holistic view. So I do really think our process is differentiated. We don't sell on that, and that's totally fine because you don't really know a good process until you go through it. And that's maybe my hard truth is like anyone can say they have a process, but like honestly, a lot of processes we've seen out there are just they're just theater. It's
Hmm.
just performative process borrowed from the old design world of like double diamond or sprints, like it looks good on paper in a diagram, but honestly, like most teams at least we've worked with just they can't hack it.
Yeah.
That's my hard
That makes
truth.
sense.
I don't know
That's
if
a good
that
one.
was a hard truth.
Good one. Yeah. I should put I should add some context to my comment because we just moved straight on. But basically, um, yeah, like we've had lots of instances where there might be client culture or like personality that kind of wants to alter the process in order to achieve some goal that's or just alter the process because they think it should be done a different way. And I mean, it's a hard non-negotiable for us anymore. But in the past, we used to be a little bit more flexible with that, and just it found that like every time it's not doesn't work in anyone's favor to change the process.
Yeah. No,
That's it.
I'm glad you said that because it's like the number of people we've talked to in the past, and even to this day, that they're like, well, I don't want to do discovery. I don't want to pay for discovery.
Yeah.
Well, okay. It's like that's the riskiest project you're ever going to undertake at that point.
Yeah, totally. And we're probably not the right fit for you.
No, exactly.
All
So,
right, cool.
wow, I'm getting some
Sweet.
serious God
That's
rays
it.
going on here. All right.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.